Welcome back to HuffPost Live. I'm Ahmed Shabiddin, and I've got more of today's top stories for you. Joining me now to discuss some of the top political news of the day is HuffPost politics reporter Arthur Delaney. What's up, Arthur?
What's up, Ahmed? How are you?
I'm good. We're going to be talking about a lot of stories, so we'll get right to it. The chemical oil spill that has plagued West Virginia since last Thursday has done more than affect residents' clean access to water. The spill, which dumped up to 7,500 gallons of a strain of methanol into the Elk River, reveals the lack of information about not only hazardous chemicals, but the extent to which these chemicals can affect the public as well. One West Virginian said that had she known the tanks along the river contained dangerous chemicals, she, quote, certainly would have raised questions about it. So, Arthur, why was the community so in the dark about these hazardous chemicals and more importantly, the proximity of them to a drinking water source?
Well, what's such a shame about this situation is that there was a system in place to notify the public that these kind of chemicals were being stored where they were. And in fact, the company had notified the government that this exact chemical was on the premises, but people still didn't know about it. And it was Ken Ward Jr. of the Charleston Gazette who first reported this, and our own Kate Shepard has a great follow-up. And there are almost 10,000 sites throughout the state where toxic chemicals are stored. But the way this is disclosed to the state is not digitally, it's all on paper. And they don't have easy access to the filings. Apparently, this stuff is just sitting in a filing cabinet. So there's disclosure, ostensibly there's disclosure, but practically there isn't, because this stuff isn't online, it's not easy to get to. And that is why, even though they could have known that this was happening, there isn't a plan. They didn't have a plan in place for how to deal with it, and they don't know how dangerous the chemical really is.
And to that point, I mean, a lot of people concerned about the long-lasting effects of this. Business First on Twitter, for example, pointing out water tainted with chemicals from the West Virginia spill is making its way to Louisville via the Ohio River. We know that certain people are now not using the river. I mean, any news as to what to expect in terms of where this might end?
Well, some people near the original contamination are being told that it's safe to turn on their drinking water and to use the water for bathing. But what has been amazing is that throughout this story, there has been confusion about how much of a concentration in the water of this particular chemical is a safe amount. And officials really haven't known exactly how much there is and how much is safe. So I think as it spreads to other areas, that is basically going to spread uncertainty to other areas as well.
So we'll just have to wait and find out. Well, for those of you waiting to find out how or if President Obama will change the government's phone record collecting ways, you won't have to wait much longer. On Friday, the president will present a speech at the Justice Department where he will discuss the collection system and other national surveillance programs. And although he's expected to endorse changes to the current system, he's also expected to leave many of the specifics out and instead leave them for Congress to sort out. A convenient truth maybe for Obama right there, Arthur. With everything that's gone on with the NSA, what can we expect from both the president and Congress after this announcement?
Well, as best we know right now, President Obama is leaning towards some things, but actually hasn't really made up his mind. And the White House has said there could be decisions made between now and when that speech happens on Friday, except they are saying President Obama would prefer to leave a lot of this in the hands of Congress. Conveniently enough, members of Congress wish the administration would be specific with what it wants to do. So clearly you have a bit of a hot potato with nobody wanting to be responsible for reining in the NSA.
Right.
Because, of course, there's the constant threat that of a terrorist attack.
And, when we talk about, what can actually be done and the potential backlash and where that might come, there are some people anonymously, surprise, surprise, in the Obama administration who are giving quotes to the New York Times, suggesting that the president will be trying to straddle, obviously, this very difficult line, Arthur, saying that he's worried about backlash from national security agencies. So it seems as though that can be used for political arguments either way. Should that be a top priority concern at this point, given, I mean, maybe it should, considering the fact that the public isn't as outraged perhaps as some more smaller groups are, but what do you make of that analysis of Obama's difficulty in straddling this line?
Well, I do think there's a little too much sensitivity to the idea that what the NSA is doing is defending us from terrorism, because there is so little evidence documenting that this program in particular has prevented a terrorist attack. One thing that that Obama's panel recommended, and that he is reportedly considering, is stopping the NSA from storing the bulk metadata for 5 years like it does, and having the phone companies hang on to that. But of course, phone company executives are not too keen on being responsible for that in case it exposes them to lawsuits. So it's really a hot potato all around.
And when we talk about that storage data, just to be clear, as of yet, it seems Obama's going to leave it in place for now, and he's going to wait for lawmakers, for Congress to weigh in, which is obviously what we reported. Moving along, though, Arthur, more national security issues. It looks like the U.S. government didn't exactly put its best foot forward when it came to preventing the 2012 Benghazi attacks. A new report released by the Senate Intelligence Committee shows that the deadly attacks on a diplomatic compound in Benghazi, Libya, could have been avoided if U.S. officials had responded to warnings of terrorist activity. Arthur, what more can you tell us about this revelation?
Well, you're absolutely right. They didn't put their best foot forward before the attack or after. Before the attack, there had been warnings. They had crossed what the report deems tripwires, where they should have known they needed additional security. And the report mentions that the late Ambassador Stevens himself declined on 2 occasions additional security forces ahead of the attacks. And then afterward, there was intelligence that there had been a protest relating to an offensive YouTube video, but not very good intelligence. It hadn't been corroborated. The intelligence community maybe shouldn't have sent it up the flagpole. And then, of course, the Obama administration should not have been saying, we had a protest over a YouTube, when in fact this was an attack coordinated by a terrorist group.
And Arthur, when we talk about the efficacy of the NSA or intelligence or the intelligence communities across the board with the surveillance program, there's a lot of concerns, as we were just talking about, as to how effective certain programs are. But this story reminds me of the intercepts and the top secret intelligence that showed before 9/11 the likeliness of an al-Qaeda imminent attack on the U.S. One of the top secret intel briefs was in fact titled "Bin Laden Threats Are Real," and there was obviously the whole thing about Condoleezza Rice perhaps not giving it as much attention as it deserved. This seems to be a pattern. Is there any likeliness that this is being solved, that there's a way to actually solve this so it doesn't continue to happen?
Well, I think in the wake of what happened in Benghazi, the State Department, the Obama administration, and future administrations will probably be a lot more careful with embassy security, and it's likely that there will be lessons learned from these mistakes. But what the Senate report essentially reaffirms is that this is a mistakes were made situation, and not really this sort of Obama administration doing evil deeds story that we have seen festering on the far right for a really long time, ever since this happened. But clearly there are mistakes to be learned from, and I think they will be in terms of embassy security going forward.
One can only hope so. Well, moving forward, how about that? A bit of good news for Governor Christie. Well, sort of. Despite the Bridgegate scandal surrounding the New Jersey Republican, it looks like his ratings haven't faltered all too much. In a Quinnipiac University poll released Wednesday, numbers show that about a week after news of the political scheme behind the George Washington Bridge closure broke, the governor still remains popular. When asked whether Christie was seen as more of a bully or a leader, 40% said bully, while 54% said leader. When asked if the governor was trustworthy and honest, 51% responded yes, and 41% responded no. And finally, although Christie's overall approval ratings have fallen from 70% to 55% since last summer, only 38% of those polled disapprove of the way Christie has handled his job. So, Arthur, I'm always skeptical of polls. Do you think that these numbers, I should say, will stay the same for a while, or can we expect more changes as more information might rise implicating him further, potentially?
Well, Ahmed, it's almost as if people already knew that Chris Christie was a hard-charging, blustering, blowhard type person, and the whole bridge scandal is not something that's really a surprise to them. People think he might have known his associates were involved, but for the most part, they don't think that he himself ordered a traffic jam. So apparently people believe Chris Christie when he says, my aides were doing this, I fired them, I didn't know anything about it. Apparently that is being accepted by the people who are responding to this poll. But we do see a little bit movement among Democratic voters. So bipartisan appeal he once had, maybe moderating a bit in the wake of the scandal.
Yeah, the aides always the scapegoat. I mean, don't people watch Veep, really? Moving on. As the residents of Colorado rejoice at their newfound ability to buy and use recreational weed, some may forget it's not okay to take that weed with them on the plane. But not to worry, amnesty boxes are going up at the Colorado Springs airport for those who didn't realize it's illegal still to take their pot inside the airport. So Arthur, how exactly do these pot amnesty boxes work? Can people get their weed back if they just leave it at the airport? Or perhaps might they donate it to charity, get in touch with me? No, I'm just kidding. But what's going to happen?
That's a good question. What do they do with the pot? Our understanding of the pot boxes is that you put your pot in them, board your plane without your pot, and you do not get your pot back. The story I've seen didn't make it clear that you could, at a future time, reclaim your pot. I mean, you could leave your weed in your car in the parking lot if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So if you can't get it back from these boxes, I hope they do give it to the needy in Colorado who are in need of weed.
Yeah,
that would be a happy story.
That's a Facebook group that should be started, in need of weed as a result of this airport fiasco. Well, it's weird. I agree with you. I think the boxes don't make sense because otherwise they should just have like a big bin, put all the weed in there, and then, brownies for everyone. I don't know.
Well, yeah, brownies, sunblock, mouthwash, toothpaste, and now marijuana.
Candied gums. All right.
I think the airport workers get to keep all that stuff.
I feel like you and I could talk about this for hours, but we're going to move along. Well, okay, maybe me more than you. Oh, he just rapped me. I love it. It looks like another U.S. lawmaker bites the dust. According to reports from Roll Call released on Wednesday, Representative Jim Moran is retiring from office. The Virginia Democrat served in the House of Representatives for 23 years and is a former mayor of Alexandria. When discussing his retirement, Moran said, quote, "It's time to close this chapter of my life and move on to the next challenge. I prepare to leave Congress feeling very fortunate, grateful for what we've accomplished, and optimistic for the future of Northern Virginia, the Washington metropolitan region, and our nation." Arthur, you tweeted this out saying, Moran's retirement is such a loss. Do you think you're alone in that reaction?
That picture of the guy holding the Moran sign is like an internet relic. It's been around since before I Can Has Cheeseburger went corporate, if I'm not mistaken.
Which one?
So just like Jim Moran himself, it's been around for a long time, and it would be a shame to see it go.
What an answer. What a way to end the segment. If you want more from Arthur, you can follow him on Twitter. It's right here, Arthur Delaney HP. So much that I could say, but I won't. Arthur, thanks so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Keep watching Up West Live. Much more coming right up.